Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse. This is the Bible Forum, and you're here with me. We're talking about progressivism. What do you know about progressives? Here's a question for you. What if your rationally necessary impulses are objectively immoral? For example, to save someone's life or to build your business bigger in order to hire more people and benefit your community. What if those impulses, which seem on the outside at first look to be really good, what if they are really immoral? This is the kind of question which was posed by the 18th century philosopher Immanuel Kant. He lived in the late 1700s, early 1800s. He argued that the supreme principle of morality is not objective, but rather internal. That it is a standard of rationality he called the categorical imperative. Now, the categorical imperative must be followed despite any natural desire or inclination we may have to the contrary. In Kant's system, the categorical imperative is the supreme principle of morality, doing right. Kant applied this to human behavior, arguing that we must always follow the rationally necessary choices despite any natural desires or inclinations to the contrary. Like a biblical moral code. All specific moral requirements, according to Kant, were justified by this principle, which means that all immoral actions are irrational because they violate the categorical imperative, not because they violate Scripture, not because they violate social norms. Now, it's clear to see that this is an entirely humanistic value system and that it is totally subjective. But this is where the liberal mindset resides. American progressives in the early 20th century argued that corporations and moneyed interests concentrated power to the detriment of workers, consumers, and the poor. They presumed that authentic progress must be brought about in part by economic and social leveling. Guys like Teddy Roosevelt. Thus, they saw as obstacles to progress anything like tradition, traditional ways of life, big business, including a class system that privileged a moneyed aristocracy. Ironically, the instrument of progressive reform was what it's sometimes called the welfare state, a decision not rooted in Kantian philosophy but in communist philosophy. In the progressive mind, power had to be centralized in the government sector. Quote, we can control this where we can't control capitalism or the free market, end of quote. In order to achieve this, federalism and its intermediate groups and associations must be destroyed. The philosophical fathers of progressivism included men like Francis Bacon, Hegel, Karl Marx, and others. These thinkers ushered in the modern historical era with an era in which progressivism was a main current. It wasn't always called this, and it was hidden. One of the characteristics of these thinkers' progressivism was its pseudo-spirituality, or the religion of humanity. We call it humanism. In this substitute religion, faith as a transcendent moral order is replaced by faith in nature, faith in science, technology, reason. This faith also involves a sort of humanitarian sentimentality, which attempts to satisfy an inner desire to serve mankind in the world by engaging in reforms meant to uplift the less fortunate. Those reforms, however, are not intended to effect inner spiritual reform, but rather to change institutions and thus improve society on the outside. Conservatives argue that progressive humanitarianism is both a diversion and escape from individual moral responsibility. The progressive idea is based on the fact that historical and social progress are inevitable. The idea of progress assumes movement towards some ideal or end that usually includes the perfectibility of human nature or human society. Therefore, progressives conceive this in a lot of different areas of life. For example, history may culminate in an era of absolute freedom, social and economic equality, or some form of utopia. Why? Because we have done this work. In their system, the past is viewed as inferior. It's an inferior state of existence. It has a lot of afflictions attached to it, and those things have to go away. Some progressives see progress inevitable, while others believe that political, economic, and social reforms are necessary to make it real, to achieve it. It doesn't just happen. Scientism, for example, is a progressive ideology. It is premised on the idea that the use of scientific method will lead to progress, not only in technology and scientific understanding, but also in moral and social life. Think global warming. An important American progressive would have been Woodrow Wilson. He said, if human nature cannot be improved by institutions, democracy is at best more than usually safe form of political organization. But if it's to work better, as well as merely longer, it must have some leavening effect on human nature, and the sincere Democrat is obliged to assume the power of the leaven. There's also a democratic and egalitarian strain to progressivism. The early 20th century progressives, like populists, advocated participatory and direct democracy. We don't have a democracy in America. We have a republic based on law. These people, however, favored direct primaries, recall elections, ballot initiatives, and referendums. Have you heard those phrases lately? The direct election of senators was a progressive reform. We didn't have that in the beginning. And the point is, our current political system is miles from where it began. All the while, many, if not most Americans, believe that we are still operating as did the founders, or at least as did those in the 19th century. Reality? We are all but a commune. Unknown to us is an army of bureaucrats making policy and laws which strip the populace of power and of wealth. When we see a glimmer of pure democratic republic, we think things are changing for the better. But the truth is, it's just a hiccup. It means something or nothing. And largely it means nothing. The Obama years exposed how easily we can be drawn into the morass of communism, or at least socialism, and go in gleefully. Anything Obama did was tolerated because of his popularity. But his popularity was fake, a product of the media, which loved what he stood for and was doing. As soon as Donald Trump was elected, the country and the world's political and economic engines switched over to him. The market went up. The polls indicated people were hopeful. The world markets responded positively. Dictators and others began softening their tone. Nothing's changed. The man has yet to be sworn in. He hasn't implemented a single policy change. He's simply here, a businessman who knows how to make money. And the world's paying attention. You can have all your communism, progressivism that you want in the world, but common sense knows what works.